My name is John Allen. I am over the compliance, grant compliance side of things here at Ashgrove. Um, yeah, today we're going to go through one-stop shops, the pros, cons, and alternatives. A lot of people will have heard of the one-stop shop. It's probably the most advertised scheme from SEAI. There is other schemes available. There's the CEG, which is the Community Energy Grant, which is all the same grant amounts as the one-stop shop. Very similar criteria, except contractually it can be structured a little bit differently. We'll go through a project that we think the CEG works better on. And the BEH is for individual measures. Typically, you can actually get a lot of the same grants through the one-stop shop. The CEG, you're managing it yourself. And there's certain elements you can't get. You can't get floor insulation or ventilation or air tightness or project management. So we'll go through that in a little bit more detail, the differences between them, and we'll show you an example or examples of where we think they fit. We'll go through briefly the SEAI pilot programs. Some of them are a bit obsolete now because of a recent update regarding HLI, but we'll go through them. We'll go through BER and qualification criteria. What do we need to hit in order to make sure we get the grants? A lot of that is for the one-stop shop or the community energy coordinator or whoever's managing your BEH. It's for them to figure out. Good to make you aware of it, to let you know what boxes you need to tick. Also helpful if you're trying to do your own BEH, just to see if you're hitting all the criteria. And we'll be going through case studies which kind of show what types of projects fit into what different grant program. We'll also be going through the home energy upgrade loan scheme. That loan scheme is there to provide low cost finance to people who are doing SEI upgrades. So it's to remove the capital expenditure that's required for carrying out these upgrades, allowing you to spread that out over 10 years, up to 10 years, very flexible and an excellent scheme. And then with Q&A, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them in. Davey outside might answer any questions that are kind of project specific. I'll go through them and try to discuss them in the presentation as well at the time when they're relevant. But feel free to get them in. Also, if you're a BER assessor or an architect or engineer or anything like that, and you're looking for CPD points, just let us know. Send in your email address and your name, and we'll get those certs out to you in the next few days. So the presentation is about the one-stop shop. It's about the grants available. It's not about Ashgrove. We try not to talk about specific brands, that one brand is better than the other. We're kind of talking about theory and the practical side of getting things done. But we'll give you 30 seconds about Ashgrove and then that's it. So we've been in home energy since 2001. We would have started off doing heat pumps and solar thermal. But obviously now it's solar PV and insulation, windows and doors and ventilation. It's actually our 25-year anniversary on the 3rd of June, so tomorrow. So a big birthday. So we're doing a bit of a celebration on Friday and a bigger one on the 10th of July. The SEI grants that we've covered, so we're registered one-stop shop. We're also do a number of CEG grant programs. We look after both commercial and domestic through that CEG grant. We do BEHs where somebody maybe is just looking for an individual measure, and we're also recently on the warmer home scheme. Unfortunately, fortunately, that is structured slightly different to the other schemes. You actually apply directly to SEI for the warmer home scheme. They dictate the works that you do. You don't have to pay for it if you're on certain allowances. It's a free upgrade, but SEI dictate what you have to do, and there is a waiting list of around 2 or 3 years to get the works done. But we're registered on that since in the last 6 weeks or 8 weeks. In 2025, we did about 18% of the one-stop shop and CEG projects, excluding approved housing bodies. That's there to kind of illustrate that we've seen a lot of different types of projects. We've a lot of them going through every week here. We've dealt with a lot of the unusual scenarios, spoken to SEI about how we can make them work. So we've a lot of experience in that area of trying to make projects work. We've 95 people in our office, probably an old figure now, but there's new people starting by the day here. Purpose of them is to those people is to get responses back to customers as quickly as possible. We have a professional network throughout the country, BER assessors, architects, engineers, plumbers. We're constantly looking to grow it. We do have areas that maybe we're not as strong as we'd like to be. So if you are a professional who's looking to maybe get involved in this area, I would say particularly to BER assessors who are not technical assessors, this space has now opened up for you because of the relaxed HLI requirement. Apologies to anybody who doesn't know or care what a HLI is, heat loss indicator. Briefly go through it, but if you are a BER assessor, there's huge opportunities out there now for you. It's not just limited to technical assessors for heat pumps. We do a lot of these free information events, so the webinars you're currently on, obviously, but we do well over 100 of them a year. This year, we were trying to keep it to 100, but we're trending for closer to 200 now at this stage. There's CPD points available for them. We do have an app that you might have seen at the start there. It's for kind of to give you a guide on the grants that are available and what route you can go down. And we do seminars and in-person training, I suppose. On the 3rd of July, we're doing heat pump training. That's for any plumbers or if there is any other industry professionals who might want to come. It's looking at the wiring, the flow rates, airlocks, all that sort of stuff that might happen in the heat pump system. So that's it about Ashgrove. Into the home upgrade grants. We're not covering it a huge pile today, but there is grants available from the local authority. There's advice grants of €5,000. There's a vacant property grants as well. Individual houses, the above the shop grant, the individual house is up to 70,000. The above the shop grant is up to 140,000. And the conversion of commercial to residential, which is up to 120,000. So there's different grants available from the local authorities out there. The purpose of those grants is to help solve the housing crisis, I suppose, and as well as that, solve the issue of dereliction in our town centres, which unfortunately is prevalent. We not a lot of people living in our towns and villages anymore. A lot of people moving to the country, so they've brought in the above the shop grant to try and incentivize people to do up those spaces and to bring them back into habitation. But that's the purpose of the local authority grants. It's to do with making properties available to live in that weren't previously available. The SEAI grants have a slightly different motive. They're there to reduce the amount of carbon associated with our housing stock. So they want to increase the insulation of our house and produce the energy then as efficiently as possible. So increase the insulation by upgrading the wall insulation, attic insulation, improving your windows and doors. A lot of people think that the grants are there so that they get nice windows. They're not there to give you nice windows. They're there to improve the performance of your windows, to stop heat being lost. And then obviously producing the heat as efficiently as possible, which is through a heat pump, which is the most efficient and the cheapest way of producing heat, despite what many people will have heard and maybe many people will have seen. That is down to poor installation practices and poor design, as opposed to the heat pump being at fault there. The heat pumps come out of a factory in Germany, tested to a specific standard that they can produce heat at a very efficient rate. When we put them in the hands of somebody who maybe doesn't understand them, that's from an installer point of view, or even an operator point of view, and we don't know how to operate it, which unfortunately we don't. And again, that's the industry's fault for not providing training on that, on how to operate heat pumps. Then we get poor results, but it's not because of the heat pump's fault. The obligatory heat pump grant out or rant out of the way. So the SEAI grants are there to reduce carbon. A number of ways to do it: the community energy grant, the one-stop shop grant, and the individual energy upgrade grants, which is the BEH. And there's also pilot programs. So I'm just going to briefly go through the pilot programs first, and then we'll go through the rest of the SEAI grants. So the traditional homes pilot scheme is probably one of the, I'm going to call it popular ones, maybe the one that most people have heard of. I don't know if there's a lot of houses going down through it, but it's all the same grant amounts as the standard one-stop shop. So you don't get any extra money, unfortunately. But what they have done is relax some of the U values for the walls. The traditional homes pilot is there to treat the old building that has stone walls that we should not be putting modern insulation on. It doesn't. We need to use vapor open materials to make sure that those walls can breathe, is what they commonly call it, but that moisture can travel out of that wall when it needs to, and that it's not trapped in there. So, in acknowledgement of using those vapor open materials to insulate, you can't achieve the same U value as you can with a modern PIR based insulation. So they've relaxed the U values for the traditional homes pilot scheme. There is a sign off required from a traditional building professional to say that yes, this is the right material for this building. That can come with its own costs, obviously. So I don't know how popular that pilot scheme is. There is the residential heat pump pilot scheme, which has relaxed HLI requirements, and the high temperature heat pump pilot scheme, which has no HLI requirements. I think the last two are now irrelevant. SEI announced on, I think it was Thursday or Friday, that they were removing the requirement for the maximum HLI for houses that are going through either the one-stop shop or the CEG. It is still in place if you're getting a heat pump through a BEH, which sounds funny, but it actually kind of makes sense. Through the one-stop shop and the CEG, you're under the, I'm going to call it, protection of a company that takes responsibility for your upgrade, or takes some responsibility for your upgrade at least. If you're just getting a heat pump through a BH program, so you could just ask a plumber to install a heat pump. Once that plumber is SEI registered, they'll give you the certs, and you give that to SEI and they can give you the grants. But the plumber isn't really taking responsibility for your house as a whole. So looking at making sure that all the house is, if fabric measures are up to standard. So in order to protect the homeowners on that side through the individual grant, they still have that heat loss indicator protection. What the HLI or heat loss indicator is a measure of how well insulated your house is. So how quickly does it lose heat? If it loses heat very quickly, they're saying that you should not put a heat pump in until you improve the insulation levels. We think that could have been a little bit unfair. It means the houses who need the most heat can't benefit from the cheap heat, but at the quality of heat pump installs throughout the country, it probably made sense to protect homeowners from it. But they've SEI as of Thursday have released that through the one-stop shop or the CEG, there's now no HLI requirement. It's up to each one-stop shop or CEG coordinator to say, I'm happy for a heat pump to go into this house and I will design it so that it works. You can put in heat pumps with time clocks the same way you have a time clock on your oil boiler and set it to turn on and turn off. They can work like that. They don't have to work off a thermostat, which is the most common way of controlling heat pumps. But that's a consequence of our system design, not a consequence of the heat pump units itself. So BH versus one-stop shop. So the individual grant programs, you can see here the list of grants that SEI will give you, the list of measures, we call them, or upgrades that SEI will give you money towards. So if you are looking to just install cavity wall insulation and you have a detached house, SEI will give you €1,800 towards the cost of that. Now it has to cost more than that, but you apply to SEI, you put in your MPRN, you can apply online very easily. You put in your details, say you want to apply for cavity wall installation, and SEI will give you approval almost instantaneously. You then go find a cavity wall insulation contractor, they come pump your walls, they give you certs to prove that it's done and to prove that they're SEI registered. You upload those certs to SEI, and SEI then will pay the money after an inspection period or whatever it is. So you can see each of these items can get grant aided. You can see there's a number of items here at the bottom: floor insulation, mechanical ventilation, air tightness, home energy assessment, and project management grant, that you cannot get when you go down through the BH or the individual measures route, but you can get them when you go down through the one-stop shop or the CEG. So again, you can choose which way you want to go. The benefit of the CEG and the one-stop shop is that you have a person who is guiding you through the process and who's taking the responsibility for the grants. Through the BEH, it's up to you as a homeowner or a project manager or whoever you're getting to look after it to look through the criteria, make sure you tick all the boxes, and make sure that you're getting the money at the end. The last thing you want is for you to do all the works and then SEI not to pay you money at the end for some reason through the BEH. The items in green here are the ones that were released, or the upgrades that were released at the end of January, I think it was. Jeez, was it that long ago? But the big news story obviously was that you can get windows and doors on its own. So that was the kind of highlighted newspaper article or newspaper headline that got a lot of attention. Through the BEH, you don't have to upgrade all your windows. Unfortunately, through the one-stop shop and the CEG, you do have to upgrade all your windows. So there might be a time when maybe doing the BEH for the windows and the one-stop shop or the CEG for some other things may make sense. There is also criteria around HLI or U value for getting your windows, and there's ventilation requirements that need to be achieved as well. So unfortunately, it's not as easy as just going and I want to get a grant for my windows, I'll install my windows, and SEI will pay me $4,000 if I have a detached house at the end. You do have to hit criteria. Some people will disagree with it. Again, the purpose of these grants from SEI is to reduce carbon, not to make sure everybody has nice, pretty windows. And the windows are unfortunately a very expensive way of saving carbon. So it's quite an inefficient way to spend taxpayers' money to reduce carbon. Now, there is side advantages to it. The advertising probably has brought the grants more into focus. There's been good PR around it for the moment. So maybe there's other reasons other than political reasons to do it. There's a couple. Sorry, Adam, you've sent can we get a copy of these slides? Yeah, Adam, we can send out a copy of the slides to you. It'll be tomorrow or maybe the day after, but we'll get them out to you. So in order to give you these taxpayers' money, there's certain criteria they want you to hit. You must get to a B2 post-works BER. So they want you to be high up the BER scale when you're finished. Again, making sure that it's a decent house now that the works are done and that taxpayers have essentially invested in it. You must get 100 kilowatt hour uplift per meter squared. Again, this is for your one-stop shop or your CEG coordinator to manage, not for you. It's roughly about 4 steps on your BER. And that's to make sure that you're hitting a decent criteria and making significant improvements in order to unlock that project management grant that you get through the one-stop shop, the CEG. That 100 kilowatt hour uplift is not required if you install a heat pump. So if you're installing a heat pump, they've acknowledged that, okay, they're going to get a significant uplift in their BER. It might not be 100, but it might be 80, but they've done the right thing in installing a heat pump. So in reality, to fit into the one-stop shop or the CEG scheme, a heat pump or PV is required. All the insulation measures that you do, even if you did EWI, windows, doors, attic, floor insulation, you're still probably not going to get to that 100 kilowatt hour uplift and the B2. Whereas if you install a heat pump, obviously your 100 kilowatt hour isn't required, and you'll almost certainly get to a B2. If it's if you put in PV, again, depending on the size of the system, the PV gives you a significant jump in your BER scale as well. So the important thing to remember as well is all this is calculated prior to works. So there's no guesswork here. There's no we'll install X amount of insulation and hope that we'll tick the box. It's all calculated before you start works. Make sure that you get to the position that will mean you're grant compliant. So as well as the house achieving a certain standard, individual elements that you're getting grant aided also need to tick certain boxes. None of these are very arduous. They're not very difficult to achieve. Windows, for example, you need to hit a 1.4 U value. That's not necessarily a triple glazed unit. Most double glazed units, I'm going to say nearly all double glazed units now, are 1.4. They do need to be new materials, so you can't buy second-hand windows. You have to have a cert that shows what the U value is, and it has to be by a registered SEAI contractor for your windows and doors, your attics, your walls. Floor insulation, there's no list of SEAI registered floor insulation contractors, so interior builder can do that. We're happy to talk you through that and make sure that you tick all the boxes to get the grants for that and have all the pictures and all the relevant documentation. But there's no SEI registered floor insulation contractors. So this is a one-stop shop case study. So this is the type of project that we think really works well for a one-stop shop. These are estate houses. They were in Mallow. It was a few years ago now that we did them, but they were 2-story, 103 meters squared, semi-detached houses with a BER of C3. Excuse me. They actually rang us looking for PV. What they were looking to do was bring their BER up high enough to make sure that they fit into the green mortgage territory, so above the B3 at the time. So they were looking for PV. We knew PV at the time costing around 7,000. It's gotten cheaper since, but we looked at the houses and analysed them, and we were able to give them much more works for not a lot more money. So we were able to do their attic, cavity wall insulation, PV panels, windows and doors, and an EV charger. And we were able to do all that for €15,106. The cost of that was obviously significantly more than 15,000. It was €37,000, but the €22,000 worth of grants taken off that meant they only paid the net. And that's one of the big benefits to the one-stop shop in these types of houses is you only have to pay the net. Why these work for a one-stop shop is the homeowner is living in this house, and Ashgrove, or whatever one-stop shop you use, is responsible for scheduling all of the works. So they have it all within their control, and they can. The important thing is the one-stop shop can control when the post-works BER happens. So when the BER that proves that the works are done can happen. And we can put all that work in a relatively small time frame. Obviously, that €22,000 of grants from SEAI isn't paid out until all the works are done. So whatever one-stop shop you use has to fund that element for the duration of the works. You might say that's not too bad, it's only 22,000, we have anywhere from 150 to 300 of these projects going on at any one time. So you can imagine if you're funding that for 6 or 12 months, it becomes very expensive, and a big cash flow issue. But because this is all in our control, and we can determine when the works happen. So we obviously want to try to get the works done in as small a space as possible. So we typically schedule it around the windows and doors, which is the longest lead time. But we could get the works done in, I'm going to say 2 weeks in theory. Unfortunately, it rarely works out like that, but might be 4 weeks. So you pay us the deposit. We put in the order for the windows and start to schedule all the rest of the works. The works happen then on, we'd say, week one. They take 4 weeks, and we then get the post-works BER done as soon as we can after they're finished. Submit that to SEAI. SEAI go through all the quality inspections. There might be a quality inspection on site, and then SEAI pay the money into Ashgrove. But as far as the homeowner is concerned, once the works are finished and they've paid the remainder of the money, they don't care whether Ashgrove get the grants or not, or whether any one-stop shop gets the grants or not. That's up to us. It's up to us to make sure we have our due diligence done at the start and our calculations done at the start to make sure we comply, make sure we do the works in accordance with all the grant criteria, and tick all the boxes and send that off to SEAI. So excellent value for the homeowner. Ashgrove are happy to do them. Again, when we have that short window of works that we can work with it. So they got their BER up from a C2 to an A2, and wasn't out at the time, but of course they could have availed of the Hughes, the Home Energy Upgrade Loan Scheme, which is low cost finance, which is excellent value. So close the window, sorry, there's a lot of noise outside. So this is a very different house to the ones we looked at in the last slide. This house, obviously, the works required here will take more than 4 weeks or 5 weeks. Never mind the fact that the homeowner is putting on quite a large extension onto the house as well. So there's a builder involved. There's a long time for the works. I think it was scheduled to be 14 or 15 months. It unfortunately, like most building projects, went over. So 17 or 18 months. But you can imagine if Ashgrove did this as a one-stop shop, we're paying out for the floor insulation in week 1 or week 2 of the contract, and we're actually not getting that grant money back until 18 or 19 months later. So that's a very long time for Ashgrove or any one-stop shop or any company to be funding that level of works. There are one-stop shops who are happy to do it, and there are one-stop shops who have maybe a lower number of projects that they're looking to get through every year, and they're happy to do it, no problem, and fair play to them. But that's not what we'd recommend for this type of project. So you can see the large extension there. There is the original house. Worth noting that through the one-stop shop and to see any SEI grants, what you're actually getting grant aided for is upgrading the original house. So although they're building a large extension and they're putting in new windows and new floors and all that sort of stuff, that has to be built in accordance with building regs. So they're not actually technically getting any money towards the extension. So they're only getting the grant money towards upgrading the original house. The original house has to be done up, is I suppose what I'm trying to communicate there. They can't just keep the house as it is, even if it was slightly better nicked than what's shown in the picture here. They can't leave that house as it is and just add on the extension and claim SEI grants. The extension is essentially a new build project, and so they don't want to grant aid that. Again, it's all taxpayers' money used to reduce the carbon associated with their housing stock, not to give people money for building in accordance with building regs, which they were legally applied to do anyway, or legally required to do anyway. So through the CEG, we can give a specification of the works that need to be done, and that allows you to get your local builder to do these works. You're not tied to the one-stop shop to come out and do them all, and you're not tied to the one-stop shop pricing. So you can get your local builder to do it. we're happy to talk to the builder. We're happy to talk to architects involved, engineers, anybody who's involved, to go through some of the technical specifications that are here. When homeowners are undertaking this type of works, they've a lot of decisions to be made. Socket locations, what color kitchen, what flooring are you putting down, all those things. There's 100 things going on. And the last thing they want to have to do is learn about U values or thermal conductivities and all that sort of stuff. So we're happy to talk to builders or architects and make sure that our specification aligns with theirs, to make sure that obviously the architect can be happy, or the engineer can be happy, or the builder can be happy, but also that the SEAI grants are adhered to. So this is the grants that house got. So 38,250. It got obviously a very deep project. So they dug out the floors, did the attic insulation, EWI, floor insulation, air tightness, mechanical ventilation, the whole lot. So they probably got nearly the maximum grants that you can get for a house. So that's the main difference between the SC or the one-stop shop and the CEG. For the one-stop shop, we kind of say existing footprint only. For the CEG, anywhere where there's a builder involved probably makes more sense. For CEG, gives you, the homeowner, more flexibility. Means we don't have to fund it, which of course everybody would love if Ashgrove funded it, or if the one-stop shop funded it. In reality, what you're doing is getting a loan off an energy company in that case, and that's fine over a relatively short period of time. But in most cases, you're better off getting lending from a bank instead of from an energy company, and getting an energy company to do your upgrade works instead of a bank. So let people stick to their wheelhouses. On to the funding part of it. So the HUELS, the Home Energy Upgrade Loan Scheme, is an excellent low cost finance that's out there. It's unsecured, so you don't have to put a lien on your property. You don't have to put up any collateral. The interest rates are as low as 3%. They vary depending on what bank you go to. You don't have to go to the bank that you're with, but probably makes more sense. They have all your details, but you can go to any of those banks. And you can lend between 5,000 and 75,000 euro. Spread it out over 10 years or a shorter amount of time if you want. You do have to be claiming the SEAI grants. So how this works in reality in the background, again, doesn't matter for you, the homeowners, but just to give you a feel for it. When you apply for this loan, you submit your MPRN. That MPRN gets flagged as this house has now claimed the SCBI loan. What they'll do is they'll monitor, and if within the first 9 months, they'll check to see if the grants are drawn down against that house. And if they're not drawn down, they'll go back to you and say, what's the story? We can't see any grants drawn down. And then you'd say, works are ongoing. We expect to be finished in 3, 4, 5, 6 months. They'll say fine, and they'll check again after that. But if there's no grants being drawn down, they will probably bump you up onto a higher interest rate and potentially look for penalties as well. So how do you apply? The first thing is you have to establish what works you require, so give you a feel for how much money you want to apply for. And then your one-stop shop or your CEG coordinator give you a form which outlines has your MPRN on it, has the increase of your BER, has the cost of the works required, and you submit that to your bank then, or to as many banks as you want, and they'll give you a approval, hopefully. It is unsecured, but unfortunately, well, they do need to still do their due diligence and make sure that you can afford the repayments, but it doesn't affect your mortgage or anything like that. So just an example, those houses that we looked at where the cost was 15,000 euro, the max loan that they could have gotten through the HUELS was 20,000. So they allow you to get a maximum of 75,000, but because it's linked to doing energy upgrade works, they don't, if you're only spending 15,000 on energy upgrade works, they don't want to give you 75,000 because that's not the spirit of the loan. They'll allow you the full 15,000, but they'll allow you an extra 25% to cover any maybe painting you want to do or redecorating. It doesn't matter. You can spend it on a holiday if you want, but they have no way of checking that. But they'll only give you the extra 25%. So the maximum that you could get is 20,000. So that's about €194 a month with a 3% rate of interest over 10 years. So that's what they could have got. Obviously, they can get lower than that. So they could have only taken out a loan for 10,000 if they wanted, and they covered a 5,106 from savings or whatever they want. Again, spread out the payments over 10 years, and they're a much lower interest rate. So, in summary, I feel like I've flown through this. I think I've answered most of the questions. Sorry if I went too fast there, people. Which grant should we be looking at? So just again, in summary, to go through the various grants. So BEH, there's less grants available. So you can't get the floor insulation, you can't get the ventilation, or you can't get project management. And you are self-managing it. So you are looking after the application, the paperwork, making sure you tick all the boxes. That's all your responsibility, I'm going to say, unless you hire somebody to look after the BEH grants for you. But obviously with that comes the risk. Who's taking the hit if the grants don't come through for whatever reason? So through the one-stop shop, it's project managed from start to finish. You get benefit of the grant up front. You get the value of the grant up front, so it's taken off your net costs. This last one is Ashgrove's opinion as opposed to a fact. We think it's mostly suited to existing footprint only. So one where there's not a builder involved doing an extension or where there's not major renovation works inside the house. And then the CEG, you have a lot more flexibility to use your own contractors. So if you have a builder already appointed or are looking at appointing a local builder, makes a lot more sense. And you do, but I suppose, but maybe you do receive the grants after the works are completed. So you don't get that value up front. Most of the projects we're seeing through the CEG are going to a bank for mortgage finance. So that benefit is probably, or the benefit of getting the existing, of the value of the grants up front is probably reduced because they're getting a low cost or a mortgage anyway, as cheap as they can, which is probably the lowest interest rate you'll get, bar maybe the Hughes. So that's it. There's a few more people asking for slides. Yeah, we'd send them out to you. That's no problem. I'm just going to quickly go through the rest of the webinars we have coming up. So on this Friday, we've insulation and ventilation upgrades. We'll go through issues and solutions for that. And the 9th of June, which is Tuesday at 5 o'clock, we'll be going through domestic PV. Sorry, 13th of June, that's actually cancelled, apologies. On the 19th of June, we have the traditional homes pilot. So that's a Friday at lunchtime. 26th of June, we have energy upgrade grants for businesses. That's going through grants that you can get for your business, sports club, community club, basically anything that's not a house. There's a number of different grant routes that you can get. The CEG is obviously one of them, the Community Energy Grant, but there are other ones. And on the 3rd of July, we have in-person heat pump training I discussed at the start. We're doing some training for plumbers, electricians, if there is, as I said at the start, any professionals on the call who would like to attend. Feel free to get in touch. If we have a spot, we'll happily allow you to join. But it is kind of technical, nerdy, going into valving and all that sort of stuff. You do have two questions in there. Are RADs included in the heating upgrade? So there is a separate grant. I'll just go back to that slide. Here, there is a separate grant for the heating system upgrade. So you can see that here. There's up to 2,000 available for upgrading RADs. Depending on the year of the house, kind of depends on how many rads need to be upgraded and how well the insulation is. There's a design we need to do in order to ensure that the heat pump is sized correctly, but also that the rads are sized correctly for each of the rooms to make sure that the heat that the heat pump is producing, it can heat that room on the day when it's -3 out. There is a separate grant for that. Typically, whoever's installing your heat pump will upgrade your rads as well. And yeah, so that's it. Typically, would all be included in the price. Depends on if there's a survey done or not. Obviously, in order to establish which rads need to be changed, we need to do a survey. So there might be an estimate done at the start. Best way to contact us if you give a call to the office here tomorrow, or if you want to email info@ashgrove.eu, we'll give you a call back. But either way, we'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible, or even if you are working, if you want to put it on your email, when's the best time to contact you, we'll give you a call back then. So info@ashgrove.ie should get us, or if you want to call the office here in Mallow. Thanks for all the compliments. I have a vacant property living city initiative and one-stop shop. I can get all three now, but how would I spread the costs evenly through them all so I can maximize efficiency? So, sorry, this is a person who's getting the vacant property grants and the living city initiative and the SEAI grants. So we always say for the vacant property grant, sorry, the SEI grants are the more prescriptive ones, Chris. So putting all your energy upgrades through the SEI grants would be the first place I'd start, and then you look at kind of backfilling the vacant property grant and then the Living City initiative. We do have a vacant property webinar. I think there's one on in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time. They're typically Tuesday at 5 o'clock, but we go through. Sorry, it's here. So the 16th of June here, we have the Vacant and Derelict House webinar. And we go through some of that nuance, Chris, of how to fill in the forms in order to maximize it. I will say that it's not that critical at the start. It's critical at the end when you're submitting your invoices to make sure that you tick all the right boxes. Excellent. Super. I think I've answered all the questions. Thank you very much for staying listening to me.